Hi, I'm Justin McLeod, Community Relations Coordinator for Roanoke City Public Schools. This month we will explore Helen Keller's ties to Roanoke. We will take you to a military ball at Patrick Henry High School, and we will meet the 3 finalists for Roanoke's Teacher of the Year. Each year, junior ROTC members here at Patrick Henry High School participate in a military ball, and here to joining us today to talk about that is Colonel Stephen Boyd. Colonel Boyd, this is sort of a self-explanatory, a military ball, but it's much more than just a dance, is it not?
Absolutely. This, as I mentioned that evening we had the event, that was our 10th year to have a military ball. And it was something that the students wanted to do. It wasn't something that I really pressed on them. And we use a military ball for a number of reasons. I think the biggest reason is we have a lot of good kids in our program. And we want to take a moment to recognize the success of those kids. And you were at the event. You know, part of the event involved recognizing the sacrifices of POWs and MIAs. We had a ceremony for that. Obviously we recognized our flag at the beginning of the event with a color guard. The stuff that the kids really get into is all our first years who have done well academically. And when I say done well academically, that means they got an A in our class and passed all their other classes. They got promoted at that event. So that's a way of recognizing their success. We also, for the first time this year, handed out a unit coin to certain people. And a unit coin we'll hand out for people that do really neat things in our program, or people who are big supporters of our program. If you remember, I gave one to Dr. Bishop. My parents were there. I gave one to my dad because he's been probably my biggest supporter. And we gave them to a number of our students who, again, met certain criteria.
The military ball mirrors what you would actually see in the military, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And why is that important to do that in the high school level?
Well, I think, we're really not recruiters, but I think one of the things that we try to do with our students is show them that after high school there are a lot of great options, service-wise, employment-wise, and throughout the course of a year we'd like to show them as many things that have to do with the military as possible. Having a military ball is one of those things. We have an annual awards night later in the year on May 2nd. We just came back from Washington, D.C., and we spent part of the day on a military, actually we were on 3 different military bases while we were there. Oh, wow. And again, that gives the kids kind of an example of what a military base is like. Maybe that's a lifestyle that they would want to participate in as an adult. I don't think there's any greater service than serving your country. And again, I always tell the students, if you have questions about that particular career field, I was an officer in the military for 21 years. Sergeant Mills was an NCO, senior NCO for 20 years. What better people to ask? And so I think it's important, to show them things, don't just tell them those things.
You mentioned the promotional ceremony. As someone who witnessed it, it was very touching to me. And I hate to say this, or I'm happy to say it if it's okay, but you seem like a proud dad.
Oh, absolutely.
What was that like for you to see your students come from freshmen at the beginning of the year, probably nothing, to where they are, where they're being promoted?
It's neat because in some cases I met some of these students when they were 8th graders at the middle schools, because we go out and recruit at the middle schools the year before. And a lot of them will tell me when they come in, hey, don't you remember me? You saw me at the middle school. But it is neat for them to come in there. And, the expectations of our program are probably a little bit different than the expectations of other programs. We're not an academically based core program. It's about citizenship development. And a lot of the things that I talk about in class have to do with making a better citizen. And what's really neat is, when you get halfway through the year and a military ball happens, you see a lot of them that have really bought into that. This thing that, I can get better at things. And one of the things I've always tried to do in my program is accentuate the positive. And one of the things that's positive is, and the parents will probably echo this, they want their kids to do well academically. They want them to be a success after high school. And I think one of the things I try to stress is certain skills in class to be successful. And to believe that, yes, I can be successful as a person. I can get an A in a class. I can do this, because a lot of them don't think they can. And, I said, I think stressing the positives is important in class. And it's nice to see that kind of all come together on military ball night, where, we have about 40 or 50 first-year students. And, if memory serves me, about half of those walked across the stage and got promoted.
Oh, wow.
And, I can remember a day a long time ago when I got here 16 years ago that 1 or 2 would have probably walked out there to get promoted. So stressing academics has really paid off hugely for us and for the school as a whole.
The enrollment numbers in junior ROTC, both at Patrick Henry and William Fleming, are pretty strong, and not a lot of local school systems can say that. Can you attribute that to anything in particular?
I think the kids like the program. What we have tried to do since I've gotten here and since I've hired Terry Mills is we try to offer a lot of things after school. And like right now, they're over in the auxiliary gym. They're having their honor guard practice. We've got a big drill meet coming up on the 6th of April here at PH, the local drill meet. And then 3 weeks later, we'll be in Richmond at our state drill meet. And we have been very successful at the state level the last 3 years. We were actually second in states last year, came close to winning a state championship. And again, I just think that, you know, with all those offerings, the kids don't like everything that we do, but we hope that if we offer enough things, they'll find something that they do like and have a passion for, and it gives them a reason to come back and be more involved in our program. The school stresses after school involvement. And again, it's just exciting to see it kind of come full circle. So.
Well, the military ball has been going on 10 years strong, and I'm sure it will continue. It's a great event, and congratulations, and we'll see you again next year.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming. You were there too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be right back. You may be surprised to learn that Helen Keller actually visited Roanoke at one time, and that was part of a special visitor here to Virginia Heights Elementary. And here to talk about it is the proud principal, Miss Schmidt. I can't talk today. Of course, I know who you are. So, tell us about this visitor, what it meant to you and your school.
Absolutely. Miss Betty Byrne-Ware came to Virginia Heights and to talk to our second graders, but also to our regional HI program about her visit with Helen Keller when she was just a child. And it was very exciting because she brought pictures, so our children were able to see what Roanoke looked like 60 years ago, and also learn about the impression that Miss Keller left with Miss Byrne-Ware.
The photos were amazing because back then most people transported or transportation was done by train. So I remember her speaking. Essentially, she got off the train.
Yes, she got off the train. Of course, the railroad has been a big part of her family's life as well. And she did bring some of the history about the train and the railroads in our area to the children. But the children were more interested in the dress of the women back then. So they were impressed with the train, but more so of the fancy dresses and the gloves and hats that the even young children wore at that time.
You mentioned that second graders learn about Helen Keller.
Yes.
You know, they obviously know that she was a real person, but to actually meet somebody who had met her and sort of knew her, what is that? What does that dynamic add to the learning process?
Well, that's where all the questions came from the children, the second graders. They wanted to know things not just about what she said to Miss Byrne-Ware, but things like the color of her eyes, or how did she speak with you, or how did you feel being with someone who communicated differently. So it wasn't just about some of the facts of when she was born and where she grew up and maybe who her teachers were, but just those real personal things the children wanted to know about the impression that Helen Keller gave to Miss Byrne-Ware during that exchange. And because Miss Keller was such an advocate for people with disabilities, I think it just brought home that culture that we have here at Virginia Heights as well. So they made that direct connection to a real live person that they really only saw in pictures, but at this time came to life through someone else's experience.
You mentioned earlier the HI program, which obviously stands for hearing impaired for those in the public that may not understand that terminology. What was it like? Because your students, your hearing impaired students, were part of this presentation. They got to hear it.
Yes.
I would imagine they probably heard of Helen Keller, certainly an inspiration, but to actually hear firsthand, what was it like for those students?
This was one of the most special events I think that we've had at our school, representing our whole school, but certainly as a focus with the HI students. Our students with hearing impairment, you know, our whole school advocates for students with disabilities. They were a part of a second grade visit to the Grandin Theater to go view The Miracle Worker. But in this case, it sort of elevates the fact that people with disabilities are no different than anyone else. And someone like Helen Keller, who's known in history and is famous in history, to have that relationship or that connection with them really was a very personal connection.
We talked about
your students and their reaction, I would imagine your staff members also had a pretty good reaction or an interesting reaction to this visit as well.
I think one of the things we talked so much that Helen Keller was an advocate, again, for students with disabilities, but our school community is an advocate for all of our students, not just our students with disabilities. And I think it was exciting for many of them, again, just brings back your childhood, that you've always heard of someone such as Helen Keller, but who had actually had a chance to meet her or could bring a real life experience to a group or to a school community. And honestly, our adults had some questions for Miss Burnware as well, because it sort of brings that child interest back out, and even the adults.
As we wrap this up, you mentioned a lot of the students had questions about the dress.
Yes.
So you have one of those in your closet?
Well, I have a somewhat updated wardrobe, maybe not that bad, but
Maybe your mom or grandmother, I'm
yes,
sure.
more like my grandmother.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, congratulations. It really was a sweet visit, and I know you honored her with several gifts. Maybe you want to talk about that before we go?
Well, absolutely. Miss Burnware is quite an advocate within her community and started recycling programs, and she's a true friend to just things that are earth friendly, and I think that she's dedicated her life in that sense, being an advocate for animals and for good choices in our community. So we were trying to respect some of those choices that she has made, but also honor her in our school on things that represented our school. So our students in the regional program made clay cinnamon hangers, for the scented hangers with the symbol for I love you. And so that represented, of course, the hearing impairment program. But we also, through our art classes, we presented her with a mug that had our school logo on it, which of course includes our students, our staff, and our community as part of that tree, the trunk of the tree, with the ASL symbol for strong, which ties in the whole concept of advocacy for people with disabilities.
And we should mention that RVTV recorded the presentation,
Yes.
so while it was just here at Virginia Heights, students throughout the district were able to view
Yes.
that presentation. We certainly thank RVTV, and thank you to you, Principal Schmidt.
Appreciate it.
Have a good summer, okay?
Thank you. You too.
All right, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Richter, and I am a biology teacher at William Fleming High School. So today we're going to look at a couple different things. We're going to focus on Virginia ecosystems a little bit, and then we're going to look at how humans have impacted the earth since we've been here. When I was younger, my mother was a teacher, and I saw the impact that she had on students' day-to-day lives, and I try to emulate that through my life. I've always been either a co-teacher or a student aide in high school and in college. So you're going to go through each question and you're going to answer it truthfully, and they're questions like, what kind of car do your parents drive, or what kind of car do you drive? Do you plug in your electronics? Or do you leave them on all night? So we're going to go through that very quickly. The biggest thing that I do is build a strong relationship with my students. Is anyone in the 21 to 28 range? Nice, meaning you are doing a very good job. You are helping our environment. How about 29 to 36? There we go. Oh. That's where we should be. Your efforts are appreciated. So before we even tackle the learning part of school, I like to make sure that their needs are met emotionally, physically, and all of that. So if they know that I care about them, and not just as a student, but as a person or a young adult, they usually learn for me, or they will be motivated in my classroom. So if I read through my questions, it says plant seeds have different shapes. Can I see different shapes on the board? Yeah, so that's an observation. How about milkweed seeds are dispersed by wind? Can I see them being dispersed by wind? No, so that is my inference. The students that we have that have to push a little bit more, we add a lot of fun and interesting things in science. Science usually leads to a spark of interest in students. So with climate change, our Earth goes through periods of warming and cooling, but scientists over the past 200 years have noticed that our Earth's planet has increased in temperature a lot. when people ask me, like, why do I do it, I see the impact that I make on my students on a day-to-day basis, and that's something that I really enjoy. Previously, I was actually going to become a doctor, and I didn't get that connection with people as going through that process. And since teaching has been a large part of my life, I enjoy it. So I know it's worth it. Even when students aren't doing their best or anything, I do see the long-term impact of being a teacher. There's a chemical called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. And every time anyone would spray one of those cans, it got released into the environment, and then it attacked our ozone layer. So if you look at our picture, in 1971, we had a very healthy ozone layer. Red is good, it means it's thick. And then from 1971 on, we start to see that red go away, right? Meaning our ozone layer was going away, which is a bad thing. I enjoy teaching. My main reason is a little bit selfish in that I want our world to be a better place, so I get to impact kids when they are making their decisions in life and forming that mental decision-making process. So I get to be a part of that every day. Does anyone remember the climax community for most of Virginia? So two types of trees. Oak and hickory. Oak and hickory, good. So it would be like on your SOL, which of these is not part of the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, and it'll be sanderlings, osprey, oysters, and then like a killer whale. Do we have killer whales off the shore of Chesapeake Bay? No, okay. I don't consider myself an outstanding teacher, but I do throw in the dedication and the time and the commitment for this job. So to be recognized is something that is extremely exciting for me.
Thank you, Mr. Director, for always making class fun.
We knew you were going to be nominated for Teacher of the Year.
Good luck.
Hello, I'm Raymond Cotter. I teach engineering for Rotec at William Fleming High School. So you guys all have two of these in your robot, and so far its primary purpose has been a pain in the butt to install, right? Yeah. So we're going to look into how we can use these to help you guys with driving your robots now. I was taking classes for graphic communications at Clemson, and my professor noticed that I would finish my work in the labs and stick around to help other people when they were getting stuck. And he happened to be the department head for technology education, so it was kind of like, come over here, we have cookies. And once I got into that, it was very clearly what I wanted to do. If you pop the cover open like this, what you'll see is on the inside, you have a disc that connects to this axle hole right here. When you spin the axle, you can see where that disc also spins, right? I really enjoy the stuff that we do, and I'm very passionate about that, and that's contagious. The second thing is I try to make sure that all of the work we do in class is actually relevant and has real-world connections. If I say that I want you to do something if this is true, how many times are you examining that decision? Probably just the once. So if we're going down a list of instructions, so like let's say you're getting ready to go play your game, right? Just before you hit out the field, if your shoe is untied, tie it, right? Now, are you going to be in the middle of a play and stop to check your shoe? No. At that point, in terms of programming, you're running the steps for that play, right? Hopefully, checking your shoe is not one of those steps. I've done a lot of work with the National Science Foundation grants at Virginia Western, and that's helped me to build relationships with industry in the area. I've gotten to tour, like, at this point, I think 10 or 12 different companies, and we're always asking them questions to make sure that what we're doing in the classroom translates as directly as possible to real-world situations. Now, since you've been out for a while, what I'm going to have you do is we're going to get down here to VEX programming, and I'm going to have you work on some of these tutorials right here. And this is going to bring you up to speed a bit. Some of these guys are dealing with some of their situations, they're kind of my hero just for showing up and walking through the door each day. But at the same time, that also doesn't mean that I'm going to excuse things that are basically maladaptive behaviors, but I'm going to try to help them steer into ways where they can deal with that, work through it, and then basically leave, for lack of better terms, try to leave their drama at the door, and that way they can focus on something that helps them move forward, not just out of their situation, but also just lets them get on with their day and have a moment of peace, because some of these guys just don't get that. Davion, how you doing over here, man? Okay. All right. So come on over here, and let's go up to the robot menu. We're going to get everything set up where this works well for you. we have a lot of overlap with physics, and somehow every year we seem to hit the same topics at the same time for my second-year students. And that really, really, really helps them understand what's going on from different perspectives, and it lets them see a real-world application for things. Now, right down here behind this cover, there are a pair of light sensors. And on the back side back here, there's a pair of lights. And the way this sensor works is it shines a light through these holes in the disc, and the light sensor can tell you whether it's seeing light where there's an opening, or darkness where there's a solid spot. So far, so good? So basically, if we wanted to find out how far your wheel has turned, we can just count how many flashes of light it sees. I always talk to my kids about, you want to make sure that you have the skill set where once you go in the workforce, you have a job that you get to do and not one that you have to do. And they can understand that pretty well because most of them have seen people who have to work, not people who get to work. I'm lucky in that I really love working with these students and seeing what they're capable of. But in addition to that, in terms of just supporting the community, I can have a much larger impact towards the whole economy of this area as a teacher training engineers and engineering technicians than I could as a single engineer or technician myself.
From everybody in engineering 1, Mr. Cotter, we love you.
You're the best. We appreciate you.
Hi, my name is Seale, and I'm an Algebra 1 and Math 6 teacher at James Madison Middle School. We need y by itself, and neither of these two equations have y by itself. So there's a couple things we need to do. Tidy it up on your whiteboard. I'll give you about 2 minutes. I'll walk around. Let me know if you need help. First of all, I come from a long line of teachers. My great-grandmother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. Both my parents were teachers. I have aunts and uncles that are both in education as administrators and as teachers. All right, it's looking like most people have both equations solved for y. I haven't seen a single mistake on anybody's whiteboard as I'm walking around. I actually went to school to become an actuary. And it was, I think, through my second year at Virginia Tech during my undergrad that I sort of realized that sitting in a cubicle working an internship for an actuarial company in Richmond, that I wasn't making really an impact, and I really wanted to do something where I would make an impact, especially with young people. So how do we get rid of times -5? How do we get rid of times -5? We divide by -5, yeah. Maybe you got it. The biggest thing that I do when I reflect on what can I do to make my kids motivated is I pretty much everything revolves around the music model of motivation. It's an acronym. The M stands for empowerment, and that's the one that I hit the most. Is I want students to feel like they have an active role in choosing the way that they learn and what they're learning. And there's ways that obviously we have standards that we have to hit, but there's ways of working around that, of making the students not feel like, hey, I'm forcing this information upon you. I think learning should be like falling asleep for kids. Like they shouldn't feel it happening. It just should happen. Mitch. All right, Chapel. All right. Layla, which the spelling is different, so it's not the Layla that we know. Layla was hungry when she went to the Salem Fair. She spent $33 in total on funnel cakes and caramel apples. So similar question to yesterday, we're just buying different stuff. She bought a total of just 14 items this time, so she wasn't quite as hungry as Mary Beth. Funnel cakes cost $3, caramel apples cost $1.50. How many caramel apples did she buy? Building relationships can start with a fist bump. It can start with saying good morning, and those are great things, but real relationships are rooted in real interest in student lives. And I think that content has to come after those relationships. And if you build those relationships, the motivation and the engagement kind of comes with that. And that's what the music model really revolves all around. All right. Oh, yes. That was such an appropriate one for you to hit. Brady spent 12 hours tutoring and babysitting his little brother, Bloke. So I kind of reflect at the end of every class is what did I do today, not only to advance my students' learning, but also to advance my relationship with my students. Because becoming trauma sensitive really is rooted in building a relationship so that students can have those positive attachment relationships. And once that's there, I think the learning kind of becomes secondary, and it happens. And we know that the solution to two lines is where the two lines do what? Intersect. What are these lines doing?
Being parallel.
They're being parallel. Yeah, that was a good grammatical answer to that question. They're being parallel. I was on track to do a profession that would have made more money than teaching, and I felt like I wasn't making an impact. I love working with young people. I love coaching. I coach 3 sports a year. I coach the volleyball team, the basketball team, and the soccer team here. So, and I started the Rubik's Cube Club, which we know. So any way that I can work with students and, obviously teaching is the best way to work with young people and have a positive impact on hundreds of kids' lives every year. You know, it's not something that I ever see myself leaving, regardless of the pay. And you know, you mentioned that you could make more money doing something else, but I'm extremely content with where my life is at in both my profession and personal life. And I think a lot of that is the satisfaction that I gain from forming these positive relationships and having a positive impact on student lives.
The puzzle's been solved. Mr. Seale is the best.
And the winner is Raymond Cotter, a road tech instructor who teaches engineering at William Fleming High School. During a special ceremony at the Jefferson Center, Roanoke's Teacher of the Year received a $1,000 check from Hughes Associates. Here's what Mr. Cotter had to say after winning the award.
I would not be here without the support of so many people throughout our CPS and at home. I've had some really fantastic principals I've worked with and a lot of teachers who've helped me get to where I am over the years. I'm not going to name everybody to be here all evening, but it's very humbling to be here with all of you guys. It's pretty fantastic to see the caliber we have everywhere, and just thank you all.
We are happy to share that the first phase of the new Phelan Park Elementary is complete, and here to talk about it is Nikki Mitchum. She's the proud principal here at Phelan Park Elementary. We are doing this interview in one of the new classrooms.
Yeah.
What's it been like?
It's been great. We had the community in as well as families a couple weeks ago. Everyone said it looked great. They're proud. They're excited to get the rest of the students in the building.
Talk about that first day and the reaction of students and staff as they made it through here on the first day.
Everyone was filled with excitement. They could not believe the colors, the size of the rooms. The new furniture was a big hit with the students, but they're very proud to be in their new classrooms.
And remind me, which grades are currently being housed in the new building?
Currently, we have second grade in the new building.
You alluded to this a little bit, but talk about the contrast of the current school to now in terms of size and just being in your own space and so forth.
The classrooms are a lot bigger in the new building. Also in the primary grades, which will be preschool through first grade, they have the restrooms in the classroom for accessibility. The lighting, the natural lighting that we have, every classroom has windows for that natural lighting, and we do have some safety features in place as well.
And the views are just gorgeous.
Oh, they're great. The teachers are loving it. They're all trying to claim their classrooms for when they move into the new building.
And speaking of gorgeous views, what about that media center? I mean, it's just...
It is fantastic. You know, we still have the reading well, or a form of the reading well in the new media center, and we are prepping so that potentially we can move into the media center this summer.
And you said that you had the community in here recently. Were they surprised, shocked, just pleased with what they've seen so far?
They were shocked, very pleased. They can't wait to see the finished product. They were just in awe at the size of the new building.
What's it been like construction-wise? I know there's, I'm sure, some disruptions, but everybody's been handling it pretty well.
It's been great. We've had a few traffic pattern changes, but the community and parents have done great handling those changes. Really, the noise level has not been bad at all. Avis has done great working with us when we're having special events, or if they have certain crews that are coming on site to prepare us. They've put up some additional fencing to protect the area. It's been great working with them, and there's really been no issues going on, and instruction has not been impacted by this.
How nice, in your mind, well, we obviously know it's going to be a nice building because it's brand new when it's all said and done, the complete project, but really talk about the civic pride. It's more than just a school. I mean, this is something the entire community of Southeast Roanoke can be proud of.
Yes, I've heard a lot of people call it kind of the beacon on the hill now. It's something to be proud of. The community in Southeast has really been getting together and sprucing up the area, just like the Clean Valley Cleanup Day they had this weekend. And so I think this is another area that they're going to be able to utilize and partner with, and I think they're looking forward to that opportunity to having this as kind of a hub for the Southeast community.
Certainly realize it's just phase one, 2 more to go.
Yes.
You have a favorite part of the building or an asset? Or?
Right now I think I'm ready to get into the media center. I think just the design of the media center, having that new space with those views, and really just the smiles on the kids' faces when they're coming to learn and the pride that they have in their new spaces is very enjoyable.
Well, congratulations. I know moving is never easy, and you did it in the middle of the school year.
Yes.
Certainly have 2 more phases to go, but I'm sure you'll handle it well, you and your staff, just like it has.
The staff has been great. They really pulled together and jumped in and supported each other, and the move was very smooth.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing the finished product, and I'm sure we'll be back again soon,
Yes.
okay?
All right, thanks.
And we are happy to report Phase 2 is on time. It will include new administrative offices, a new cafeteria, and 13 additional classrooms. Phase 2 should be completed by December. That's this month's show. We'll see you again soon.